Hey guys, Riley here from Expected Edge Sports. It's good to be back. It's been a few months since we've done a podcast here, and really looking forward to getting back into the groove of things. And what better than to do this for the UCL knockout stage, which is one of our favorite events, I think, of the year. When it comes to us as a collective, we've had some great success over the past 2 years. I'm actually winning or hitting both winners for the past 2 years as well, Liverpool and Bayern Munich. So hopefully we can, replicate that and do the same thing this year. But I have a special guest with me today. His name is Vishal. He is from our group. Of course, he's part of the community, a great contributor. So he'll be adding in some of his thoughts as well going forward. And I think it'll be nice to have two, soccer-minded guys on this podcast here as we look to go forward and target another winning UCL knockout stage. So let's first take a look here at some of the first, matchups of the round of 16. And it's really important to target in on these matchups tactically as well, because there's a lot more, going on underneath the surface than just, team strength and all that stuff. You can get as much as you want into those types of metrics, like expected goals. But, analyzing the tactical side of the game is also very important. And there's some very intriguing tactical matchups, including the likes of Barcelona and PSG. You have Mauricio Pochettino, managing his first Champions League game with PSG against a faltering Barca side, you could argue. So we'll have to see, how that all plays out. But Vishal, I want to bring you on and ask you, what are you looking at? What are your angles for this round of 16 stage?
Sure. So I've made two plays initially so far, which is Leipzig on the 0.5 goals handicap at -135. I took that on BetMGM about 24-ish hours ago. And then about a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, I took Sevilla on the draw no bet pick 'em basically at -120. And so those are the two plays that I made so far.
Cool. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, because as you guys will know at this point, we have two plays this week, and one of them is on the under in RB Leipzig and Liverpool. But we also have a future on Leipzig to advance in this stage. So obviously, we're both high on Leipzig heading into this one, and I think a worthy note to point out as well is that this one will be playing. This particular leg will be played in Hungary rather than Germany due to travel restrictions, of course, due to COVID. So both teams will have to travel in this one, which could create some additional variables that wouldn't normally be the case in just a home and home two-leg match structure. So that's kind of why I like the under here alongside the model liking the under. And we can take a quick look as well at the actual card for this week. But as you can see here, we're projecting 2.61 goals, or the model's projecting 2.61 goals. And the markets have it at 2.75. So we will be taking the under 2.75 at +104. And arguments against this one would simply be Liverpool's back line. Likely we'll be playing Ozkan Kabak and then also Jordan Henderson. So you have an unnatural center back and you have a new signing in there. Could create some problems, but is there any other reasons why you like Leipzig specifically, Vishal, besides obviously Liverpool's weak lineup, I'd say at this point?
Yeah, so basically I think the last two games that we've seen from Liverpool where they took an early lead and then lost against Leicester City, and then were pretty competitive in the first half against Man City, and then got totally shellacked in the second half. So basically what we saw in those two games is that both Leicester and Man City made adjustments in game to basically switch from whatever they're doing before to like a 4-4-2, which kind of gives them a little bit more centrality. And those adjustments really made it hard for Klopp and Liverpool to adjust to those, because like you said before, they're playing a lot of guys out of position, and these guys are not accustomed, like the game plan was a game plan when the game started, but they're not really used to changing the way that they're playing and playing in other roles. And, there's no better tactician, maybe outside of Pep, than Julian Nagelsmann. And, he's already gone through 4 to 5 formations this year for Leipzig. And, if whatever he decides to start out with in game doesn't work, I would feel pretty good that he changes his side up for the second half. And, I think that they can try to get at Liverpool. And then the other way, just sort of tactically, is like what we're seeing is they're playing Thiago and Trent Alexander-Arnold on the same side, and Thiago's, he brings an offensive proficiency, but he's not really there on a Premier League level defensively. And then Trent, he really gets progressive, like really up high on the pitch. And so he needs someone to cover for him. If Thiago can't do that role, Leipzig on that side, on the other hand, will play Angelino and Christopher Nkunku, two guys that are excellent on the dribble, excellent at progressing the ball. And I think they can find space on that side. So, there's ways that Leipzig can exploit Liverpool. And so, yeah, I mean, I really like the fact that, we have a good coach in Nagelsmann who can make changes as he sees fit. And even though Leipzig don't really have a true striker after they lost Timo Werner, they still have guys that can, progress the ball and shoot and score, and get in the right positions to, I think, attack Liverpool. So that's a side that I really like.
Yeah, and obviously, the model agrees with you, and I very much agree with you as well. I think Nagelsmann is probably the brightest mind outside of Pep in football right now. He's going to be highly sought after this summer, particularly likely by Real Madrid and Barcelona. So he'll have to be making some tough decisions this summer for sure. But when it comes to this matchup here, this is kind of why I like the under as well, a little bit in the first game. And, I have played unders on Liverpool recently and been unsuccessful, partially due to Alisson. If you remember obviously the recent City game. That was actually technically a no team to score. No, that was Leicester. Sorry. So Leicester was no team to score.
Yeah.
City and Liverpool was the under, and both of those got somewhat killed by Alisson. So hopefully Alisson's head will be in the right place, but I wonder if Klopp will decide to make a tough decision and start their backup, who actually he's a younger guy and he has been playing pretty well. I think his name's Kelleher, if I remember correctly. So
yeah, yep.
He may be starting. Who knows? I mean, like I think Alisson. I think he'll stick with Alisson, but you never put it past Klopp to make a tough decision and be right. So we'll see what he decides to go with there. But I think tactically, this one could end up being a bit of a stalemate right away, because obviously Liverpool is going to be probably a little bit over adjusting defensively to try to compensate for their past few matches where Leipzig, obviously you noted about Nagelsmann, doesn't shy away from making tactical decisions in game to try to create overloads and create an advantage and progressing the ball. You said they don't have natural nines. I think the one option they do have, or one of the options they do have, is Alexander Sorloth, who played at Crystal Palace for a bit of a time. I think he's a bigger guy. He may get some minutes. I'm not sure if he'll start or not, but potential option there to create some pressure on the likes of Jordan Henderson and whoever starts next to him. It could end up being a Ben Davies, which would shock me, but of course he just got signed from Preston, so that would be a huge step up going from playing in the Championship to playing in the Champions League within a few weeks, if that were to be the case. So really interesting matchup overall. Of course, we have a lot of a decent amount of exposure on RB Leipzig right now. We have them to advance. We have the under in this game. Of course, Vishal, like you said as well, you like the plus 0.5 as well. So we're pretty high on RB Leipzig. We'll see how it pans out. But I think even if the first leg goes poorly for them, like we both noted, Nagelsmann is going to be able to make tactical adjustments to try to win that second leg and ultimately win the tie. So even if it's unsuccessful in its first matchup here, which they will be having to travel rather than playing at home, I think that second leg will be a very crucial step here in determining how far Leipzig actually get in this tournament, which I'm hoping that they have another big year. So off the back of that one, though, that one should be pretty interesting. Any other notable teams that you like in this round of 16 that we'll probably end up I'll probably end up going over them a bit in the weeks to come, but any other teams that you like to potentially make a long run or at least maybe upset in this first round?
I guess I can talk a little bit about Sevilla. They're a team that have been pretty successful within the Europa League, but tactically, I think they fit very well against a Dortmund side that is missing a lot of players in midfield that do the defensive work for them. So basically, Dortmund kind of play a 4-2-3-1. So 4 defensemen, 2 guys in midfield, 3 that are above them progressively in the field, and then 1 attacker. But that sort of includes a high 10 and then midfielders that are more like offensively oriented. So basically, when they get countered on, there's a lot of space. And usually Witzel or Zagadou are the two guys that they have that kind of, help stop those counterattacks. But they should be missing for this game. So I think Sevilla will kind of sit back and should find some success being able to counter against Dortmund. And the other thing that Dortmund kind of have an issue with is conceding on set pieces. And Sevilla, like the way that they attack, is basically they progress the ball through the flanks and then they'll send in a ton of crosses. And they have a good set of strikers. They're missing Lucas Ocampos, which sort of hurts them. But they do have a few guys that are in form that should be able to kind of attack Dortmund where they're the weakest. I think Dortmund's conceded, 14 of their 31 goals have been off of set pieces, and that's through 21 games. And I think only Schalke is worse in like the Bundesliga. And in that recent game against Gladbach, they conceded 3 set piece goals. So they've been really weak in that department. And I think that's an area where Sevilla can definitely take advantage. So that's an upset, even though it's not really sort of a round one upset. But I think if you look at the two teams, you'd think Dortmund's definitely better than Sevilla. So in that sense, it's, I guess, an upset. But I like Sevilla. And then I think something maybe of a longer shot in terms of an upset is maybe Lazio over Bayern. And this is one I haven't really moved on. I'm going to kind of evaluate where these two teams are since the game is next week. But basically, Lazio are a team that have gotten their attack sort of in form now, and they're very good on counterattacks. And that's something that you can do on Bayern because they play a high line and they have a high press too. So if you can get past that, you can definitely find space. And the link up play between Immobile and Luis Alberto has been like just really, really good. They've been in very, like extremely solid form. They came out of the restart playing pretty poorly. I mean, before the restart, before the end of last season, they were kind of leading the league. And they had a bunch of injuries and kind of lost their form. And it took them basically until, I guess, like a month ago to kind of refine it. So I think they're in the right position to kind of give some trouble for Bayern. And I don't know whether the play in that game is sort of both teams to score in over 2.5 or to take Lazio on the +1. I'm still kind of figuring that out, but it wouldn't surprise me if Lazio got a result, maybe a draw or even a win. So.
Yeah, no, it's great analysis, and I actually echo that point against Bayern Munich for sure. I mean, they were able to compensate for that high line with guys like Alphonso Davies, obviously last season, really blossoming into a star. But lately they really haven't been as good. And just for reference as well, heading into the Champions League last year, obviously I was crazy high in Bayern Munich, and I mean, really, I was so impressed that we were able to get the number what we got it at. But at this season, I think so. Heading to last year, off the top of my head, their power rating, which is basically projected goals for an average minus projected goals against on average, was about a 1.6, so plus 1.6, which it's really, really impressive. And then this season it's down at about a 1.15, and this is just in my model. So definitely a significant drop off. They're not quite at the invincible level that they were at last year. So yeah, definitely a team to look out for on the upset, as potentially their tactical system, which obviously provided them the means to win the Champions League last year, maybe will result in them getting crashing out early this year. So we'll keep an eye on Bayern Munich, but we'll talk about them, or I'll talk about them more next week as that matchup becomes closer and closer. But focusing on Sevilla as well, like you said, yeah, Dortmund will be missing out on some key defensive players. I believe Piszczek is out as well. So they'll be playing Mori at right back, and he's much more inexperienced. And so just another point of weakness for them potentially. And yeah, looking at that front four, we have the likes of Royce, Thorgan Hazard, Jadon Sancho, and then Holland. That's their front four that they use. Not all four of them really aren't the best defenders when it comes to tracking back. So often leaving the remaining 6 field players vulnerable. So we'll have to see if they can compensate for that against which should be a pretty formidable Sevilla side, like you mentioned. So
Yeah. And they
matchups
have
come down.
injuries on the D line as well. I
Yeah,
think they're missing their right back.
yeah, Peace
Um,
check. Yeah,
yeah, right. Yeah, sorry.
yeah. No, no, it's fine. But yeah, so they'll be a little bit weaker, Dortmund. So just the thing to look out for as well. And I'm not particularly high on them, getting too far. Actually, another point here is that they just announced who their new coach will be next season, Marco
Yeah.
Rosa. And I'm a huge fan of him, Marco Rosa. He'll be coming in from Gladbach. So taking a look at that Gladbach team, it'll be interesting to see, how he does in his what we essentially be his swan song in the Champions League at Gladbach. Maybe he can create a huge upset over City, and I'll definitely be eyeing that matchup to potentially hedge out a little bit of that City future potentially if the circumstances provide for me to do so. Just leading into that matchup. So Gladbach could be a pretty tight matchup for City, despite the fact that you wouldn't really expect that to be the case, and obviously City are flying high right now. So let's move on from the round of 16 though, and look bigger picture here. I do want to bring up the simulation that I've run. This is just the first iteration. I'll be running this after every stage of games essentially. And as you can see here, we're going to take a look at this and compare it to 538. But our model's been very high in City this whole season when it comes to the EPL. Likewise for Champions League, Champions League model is a lot more reliant on 538 ratings than my EPL model is. Actually, just to give you a comparison here, the weights of the final ratings in the Champions League model, 65% of those of that weight into these final ratings is the 538 ratings compared to just 15% in the EPL model. So just a little bit of perspective there. But looking at this final simulation here that I've run leading into the group stage, or the knockout stage, of course, here, City 38% to win according to the 10,000 simulations that were run. Bayern Munich coming in a distant second at 15.8%. And then every team past Bayern Munich is sort of just nothing too notable there, honestly. I mean, I do like the looks of Atletico Madrid. There's a few other teams that I sort of entertain the idea of playing some futures on, which I'll talk about in a second here. But overall, yeah, very much high on Manchester City and sort of indifferent about everyone else. So just to give you a quick comparison here for the viewers, I'll pull up the 538 ratings or the 538 simulation as well, just to compare. And they have City at 37% to win. And like I said, we've been very high on City. 538 has also been crazy high on City this whole season. And so far, it's looking pretty good. But City is going to encounter a lot of matches in a short amount of time. So them dealing with the match congestion will be very crucial in whether or not we will end up, net positive on City this year. With so far, it's looking good, but they're really going to need to churn out these last few months. So that's the outlook on the main feature, and I'll show you all the features here. But Vishal, I wanted to ask you, any thoughts, any immediate thoughts on this selection of future plays here, which of course you already have, and then also any of your own features that you're playing that are notable.
Sure. I absolutely love and agree with you that City is probably the best team, and it's their Champions League to lose. The thing with City this year that you're seeing is there's a lot of tinkering, there's a lot of positional flexibility, something that Pep didn't really do last year. So last year, he did a double pivot with basically Gundogan and Rodri. Both are sort of on the slow end, so they were able to get countered on a lot. And what he's done to kind of offset that is he's moved Cancelo back into midfield, and he's moved Gundogan sort of up more progressively. And what that's done is it's more seamlessly kind of linked the attack for them while kind of giving the pace and the defensive cover to kind of stop counterattacks. So that sort of resulted in them being almost, way more invincible than they were earlier in the season. And they've done it without Kevin De Bruyne, which is pretty crazy. KDB generated about 6.5 shot creating actions per 90. And Cancelo and Gundogan together generate even more than that. So he's found a way to kind of take the personnel that he's had, and kind of compensate for the loss of KDB. And it's been pretty incredible. And I think the only thing that can really stop City is Pep's own kind of galaxy brain, right? I mean, he's tinkering and he's done the whole mad scientist, and if he can overthink it, which he's done several times, I think that's basically the way that this future can lose. But the way that like they are just like in terms of their form. I mean, I just don't see it. But just to play devil's advocate, they have struggled historically against the EPL's top six. I think against top six teams last year, they had an average expected goal difference of about 0.8 compared to 1.8 against the other EPL opponents. And that's down to 0.5 this year against the top six. Again, that doesn't, I mean, they're still better. So, it doesn't say everything, but those are the times where I think, City can struggle. And in their recent run, they've played a lot of subpar teams, or they played good teams that are broken, like Liverpool and Tottenham. So I'm curious to see where this goes, but if that's the one future that I feel really good about. And it usually helps to put your money on the best team. And last year was Bayern, and this year it's City for sure. So.
Yeah, I mean, at the number we're getting at as well. I mean, when I first looked at this, I was just like, am I looking at the right page here? Because getting him at 350 or plus 350, I thought was crazy. But once again, it's one of those things where we've sort of aligned with 538 a lot this year, and like I said, so far we've been right, and so far it's felt very good to be on the side of City, unlike previous years where we are actually, of course, if you remember correctly, we were on Liverpool the year that they lost by a point to City, and then we were on City last year, which of course was Liverpool's reign. So hopefully, we benefit from City here, and he mentioned a lot of good points in there. Him moving Cancelo inside has made them so aesthetically pleasing to watch, because essentially what happens is they build with three. So Cancelo will defensively will often start as a right back and then move inside in possession as more of a 6/quasi 8, which makes it really interesting to watch, because he's a fullback that moves inside and plays, defensive mid or center mid. And like you said, Gundogan has the license to basically free roam and get very, very far forward, very far advanced, and has become a bit of a poacher 8, which is one of the craziest things that I would have never expected from his progression. So
Yeah.
Gundogan on absolute fire. And of course, this is without both Kevin De Bruyne, who was rated in my ball advancement ratings as the easily the highest rated player last year in the league. They are very much missing the best player right now. And then they're also missing Sergio Aguero, which a lot of people forget about, because how insignificant his losses sort of become to City, because so many players have filled in seamlessly, like Phil Foden playing at the 9 has been great. Bernardo Silva slotting in as another 8/10 has been great. Even Ferran Torres, coming in for rotational minutes when possible, he's been really solid too. So they have great depth, which is always something I've preached about City. The question will be, like you said, Pep overthinking things in the Champions League has become a bit of a topic of discussion over the years, because of how many times it's happened. But it's just hard to think about a scenario in which he would screw this up at this point. And I think there are teams that he can play against that will still be very tough. It's not like he's going to walk through this knockout stage whatsoever. And I actually think this first matchup will be a very formidable matchup, like I talked about before with Gladbach here. Will be a very interesting tactical game for sure. But at the same time, he's got a great team in form with great depth, and De Bruyne will be returning soon. I'm not sure about the status of Aguero, but any minutes that he can provide off the bench or whatever will be, obviously very much helpful. So this is the selection of features we have here, though. Starting off with 6, City to win the UCL at plus 350. Of course, like I talked about. I also mentioned the Leipzig to advance against Liverpool at plus 240. We're also going to play 2 goal scorer plays, which are not just field plays. They are calculated within the model based on expected goals per 90 for each given player, and then the probabilities of their own teams advancing throughout the tournament. So they are calculated. They're not field plays, but we're going to put a unit on Erling Haaland to win top goal scorer at plus 450. And then we're going to put a half unit on Cristiano Ronaldo to win top goal scorer at plus 800. And then the final 2 are more long shots, but teams that we mentioned previously already, though. Of course, Leipzig to advance to the final at plus 1600, very much a long shot play, but we're putting a quarter of a unit on that one, and then a quarter of a unit on Atletico Madrid to advance to the final, who we may not get to talk about too much today, but they were a team heading into the tournament a few weeks ago that I was really high on, and then now they've sort of succumbed to COVID cases, which is, of course, the new reality of football in this generation now. So
Yeah.
let's move on from this. I do want to show one more thing before we start to close this out here, but let's just take a look quickly at the futures record for the past 2 years. And this is really a blast from the past year for me, anyways, because I've only been doing this for 3 years. But looking at our first season of futures, we actually only played three. One of them was, of course, that Liverpool to win it plus 850. One of my favorite plays of all time at this point. And they are actually a little shorted this year at plus 700. So if you like Liverpool heading in, they're at plus 700. But I'm not touching Liverpool at all this year, honestly, when it comes to much of anything. And then moving on to last year, we actually played 7 in total, of course, starting off with, I think it ended up being 4, and then we added a few as we went on. But Tottenham to advance, Real Madrid to get to the final. Those two are actually Tottenham won, Real Madrid faltered pretty early. But the big one that missed last year was Atletico to reach the semifinals at plus 1,000 actually, and we almost won 15 units on that thing, which would have been incredible. But of course, the matchup against PSG proved too much for them, and they were knocked out. So overall, we've actually won so far a little over 16 units from UCL futures. So although it's not really something that's a high volume sector for us when it comes to plays, we have had very successful outings the past 2 seasons. So hopefully we can continue that success. But Vishal, any other parting notes here? Any long shots actually that you have in mind that could potentially take this tournament? Otherwise, any other information that you had in mind that you wanted to give us?
Sure. So it's not really a long shot in terms of just one future, but I definitely played a parlay of 3 teams to sort of advance from the knockout stages. And that's Leipzig at plus 220, Sevilla at minus 103, and Atletico Madrid at minus 105. And that parlay together pays about 11 to 1 on DraftKings. And I really like the look of this because, like, just as we discussed, in terms of Leipzig and Sevilla progressing, I do like the look of Atletico getting the best of Chelsea. And just quickly, like, Atletico this year have done a little bit of a formation switch from a 4-4-2 to a 3-5-2. And what that's kind of allowed them to do is protect themselves on the flank defensively, while also having enough midfielders to sort of transition into attack a little bit more seamlessly than they've been able to do in the past. They've been running a little bit hot in terms of their finishing, but it's still a team that I like because they've had UCL success in the past. And I think their strategy just sets up really well. So that's definitely a 3-team parlay that I like. And then just in terms of like one future, I don't mind the look of Atletico at 15 to 1 either. They did get Mario Hermoso back from COVID. They got Yannick Carrasco back from COVID. They're still missing João Felix, but overall, it's a team I think, that has the pedigree and the strategy to kind of get past, into I guess like the next round. The other thing I just really like about Atletico is like the fact that they have this new strategy. It makes them much more difficult to game plan against. And I think there's a lot of teams that have seen the old Atletico, but the new Atletico, I think you have to tinker around a little bit more to kind of get the best of them. And they've had a lot of success in La Liga because of that, right? Because, whenever you're able to switch tactics and formations, and it's the same thing with Manchester City in the EPL as well, you're going to have a little bit more success just because there's not a lot of time to kind of game plan. So Atletico is a solo future at 15 to 1 or better. And then Leipzig, Sevilla, and Atletico to progress as a parlay at 11 to 1 or 2 that I like.
Yeah, I really like those because I do actually like all 3 of those teams to advance. Looking at the simulation here, and made some good points about Atletico. This team does remind me at times of those old teams back in the earlier 2010s, who of course they did win a Champions League as well, and they've appeared in the finals a few times, anyways, both against Real Madrid, if I'm not mistaken. So They had some really solid teams back in the day, and Simeone obviously has the prowess to be able to motivate this team and get them to be up for every game, if that makes sense. And they do have the depth for it as well, which is a key thing as well. Because one thing I really like to think about about these teams that I kind of eye on progressing deep into the tournament is, do they have the depth to be able to handle a demanding schedule when it comes to their league and also, Champions League and potentially League Cup, fixture list. So I think Atletico is a team that does have that type of depth, like I was sort of talking about a little bit about City. And there are teams, for example, like Atalanta last year, which may have faltered a little bit due to the fact that they relied on such a consistent starting 11, or they only tended to switch out 2 to 3 guys, if at all, when it came to lineup rotation. Where I think Atletico Madrid has the ability to be a lot more flexible at times, especially with their attackers, and such high quality attackers as well. But anyways, thanks for all the great information, though. I think it's been a really interesting podcast, and potentially we'll have to look at doing this again at some point during the Champions League, because I think we had some great conversations here, and hopefully we can use this as a bit of a springboard to another winning Champions League run.
Yeah, happy to come back on, and it was awesome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. All right, guys, that's going to be it for the day. Thanks for tuning in, and stay tuned for more Champions League content.